This is Gunnar Leith. This is the first episode of a podcast that I have been working on for a very long time to publish. It's been very difficult. I first got this idea at church one day a few months ago, probably 3 or 4 months ago now. And the idea just hit me fully formed, and I really truly believe that it was the Holy Spirit putting this project on my heart. And it's something that I'm passionate about, something that I really, really enjoy doing. But through the past few months, I've hit trial after trial with this podcast. This episode you're about to hear now was perfect. It was so good. First thing I ever recorded, and it went great. But after this, things really started to become difficult. And as a lot of people know, every week for a while I'd be like, all right, this is the week it's gonna happen, and then something would come up, the equipment would break, or I'd have to cancel an interview, and it wouldn't happen. And I'm still not at the point I wanted to be at. I wanted to have like 5 episodes in the barrel, and then start publishing like every Monday, once a week, but I've only got 4 right now, but I'm publishing anyway because I'm done with waiting, and I really think this is something important that people need to hear, something that needs to be put out. So for now, at least until I get a bit of a steadier schedule, I'm going to be releasing every Monday when I can, which is going to be at least 4 weeks right now, but we'll see. Hopefully things become consistent, and hopefully I won't be missing more than 1 or 2 weeks at a time. Now, if I do have more than one in the barrel, I'm probably just going to do one a week on Mondays. And if nothing comes out on a Monday, I literally don't have anything. And I'm working on it. So we're just going to do that for now. Just enjoy this interview with the amazing Representative DJ Johnson. Thanks for listening. All right. This is the first interview.
All right, Gunnar. It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you, too. How are things going in your world?
So we're in the middle of session right now. We just finished about the halfway point. We have 10 more days left out of a 30-day session. So it's pretty busy right now. We've gotten to the point where we've done all the preliminary work, and now we're really focused on what bills we're going to have votes on, bring to the floor, switch them back over between the chambers, and then the Senate's sending us bills that we're going to start listening to. So we're really kind of in crunch time right now.
Yeah, and for those listening who don't know, the way that the Kentucky Congress works, the bills start in the Senate, right?
They start in both chambers.
Okay.
So each chamber will vote on whatever it is they want to vote on. And once they pass out of that chamber, they go to the other side, and everybody does the same thing with the bills, but in the other chamber.
Okay, so if you guys are starting a bill, so you're in the House of Representatives, so if the House would like something to happen, if they want it to make illegal to put salt on French fries, right, then you come up with a bill saying we want it to be illegal to put salt on French fries. And so you send that French fry bill to the Senate, and the Senate goes through all their committees, and if they pass it, then it goes to the governor?
Right.
Okay.
And then the governor has the veto power. He can either veto it, not sign it, but it still goes into law, or he can sign it and immediately goes into law.
Right. He can say, I do like salt on my French fries, so...
Well,
I'm going to veto this.
We're going to keep that one pretty safe, I think, because I'm not eating French fries without salt.
Yeah, that wouldn't work. All right, so just give you a quick intro here. So this is DJ Johnson. He's Representative Johnson, and he has been a state representative, first elected in 2017 for the 13th District of Kentucky.
Correct.
Which is Daviess County, Greater Owensboro. He was a veteran officer in the Army. He's a teacher at Grace Christian Academy here in Owensboro, and he's been a mentor of mine and a great friend. And also,
saying that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's definitely true. I talk about you all the time, And I mean, that class, I took your government class last semester, and that really made a big impact on me. Part of the reason I started this, even. So I knew you were one of the first people that I wanted to interview.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I just want to say I'm excited about you chasing your passion.
Thanks.
If you do that, you can't go wrong. So go get them.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I have interviews scheduled all the way through I think May. And I'm starting because I'll be in Florida over the summer. So I'm starting to schedule interviews. So I'm like skipping those summer months, and I'm going to schedule some for after summer.
Good.
And I mean, I had this idea on Sunday, so about a week ago. So it's definitely moved fast. I've been pretty busy.
I'm glad to hear that. By the way, I would suggest don't forget about your grandfather.
He's on the list for sure. I could have a whole separate podcast of just him talking.
You could. There's a lot of wisdom in that man.
Yeah.
So don't miss him.
He says hi, by the way.
Oh, good.
Yep. Yeah, he was pretty excited when he heard that I was going to interview you. Yep. Yeah, he said if you ever don't have anyone scheduled, then I'd love to do an interview.
Good. I'll tell you what. Well, I thought when we were talking about this, if it's okay, I'll just give you a little of my background.
Yeah, absolutely.
How we got to this point, really. And I am from Owensboro, grew up here, born and raised. Went to Tamarack Elementary School and then went to Apollo.
Mm-hmm.
My running joke about that is it took me 6 years to graduate from Apollo. Now, the rest of the story is it started out as a middle school, and I was there when it opened.
Right.
So I went 3 years to middle school, 3 years high school.
Okay.
But it really did take me 6 years to graduate from Apollo. And I knew early on at Apollo, I knew I wanted to go in the military. And it turned out that the branch I decided to go into was the Army. Mm-hmm. And I earned a 4-year scholarship, ROTC scholarship, to pretty much go wherever I wanted. So it turns out one of the best ROTC programs in the country is at Western.
Okay.
So I ended up going to Western Kentucky University, graduated from there, got my commission, went into the Army, was commissioned as a field artillery officer. But an interesting part of that was when I was still at Western, I went to airborne school. So I don't know what this says about my smarts or not, but I did learn how to jump out of airplanes.
That's awesome.
So my first assignment was in Europe, in Italy. I was in an airborne unit. Mm-hmm. And we were part of the NATO Immediate Reaction Force. So whatever happened in Europe, if anything happened that was going to require military activities from NATO, we were going to be the first unit to go in for the U.S. So that was pretty cool. So spent 11 years in the Army. Ended up in the Washington, D.C. area. It was my last assignment.
Okay.
And we enjoyed that. So once I got out of the Army, we basically stayed in the D.C. area for about 15 years. And we enjoyed that, but it's a different lifestyle than it is here in Owensboro. And I'm an Owensboro boy. And I knew all along that eventually we were going to come back. And we did that in about 2003.
Okay. And who's we?
My wife and I, my wife Ellen. So we came back, and my goal was simply to just enjoy Owensboro, and it was managing the family business. Her family owns a Spark Bright car wash, a couple car washes in town. Mm-hmm. I was taking care of that business, and I was happy, but you get that urge, when you want to serve the community, and that's what got me in the military. It's what got me involved with my church. Mm-hmm. I'm a deacon over at Bellevue Baptist Church. If you got that urge to serve, you find things to do.
Right.
And was happy doing what I was doing, but noticed that I wasn't real thrilled about the leadership we had in Frankfort from locally.
Yeah.
The local representatives.
Right.
And decided I was going to take a shot. And in fact, there's an interesting story. It's interesting to me anyway. I hope you guys will think it's interesting. But the thing that finally drove me to go ahead and make the decision to run was I was talking to a gentleman named Bill Barron, who you know well.
Yeah.
And Bill had run for the state representative seat a few years prior. And I asked him one day, I said, "Hey, Bill, you ready to make another run at the state rep seat?" Mm-hmm. And he looked me in the eye and goes, "DJ, are you ready to make your run at the state rep seat?" And I froze because I hadn't really thought. I kind of thought about it, but I never seriously thought about it. And I said, "Bill, if you'll give me a few days, I'll give you an answer." And I took that, went home, talked to my wife, prayed about it, talked to some friends, got some counseling, and talked to Bill a few days later and said, if you're serious, yeah, I'm ready to make my run.
That's great. Yeah, I remember his campaign. I didn't really understand it at the time. I thought he was like running for the president or whatever. Because I was like,
You were pretty young back
I was
then.
very young. Yeah, but I do remember that he lost, and I remember on that night I don't even remember where we were or who exactly was there, but it was like a party for like a watch party to see if he had won or not. And later on that night, we figured out that he lost, and he was kind of relieved, and because I don't know, because like there's so many, like he's a big family man, and he loves spending time with his family, and I feel like he felt that he had to, like this was something he really wanted to do, but at the same time, it would mean less time with his family, and so I wonder if you've ever like experienced anything like that push and pull. Because I know you're in Frankfurt a lot.
Yeah, like right now when we're in session, I'm there Monday through Friday from January through the end of February.
Mm-hmm.
Then 2 weeks into March, we're there Monday through Friday. We get a 2 week break, and then we go back for 2 more days and wrap things up. So I'm away from home literally 5 out of 7 days during the session. Now, when we're not in session, it's not that way, but I do a lot of driving back and forth. I spend a lot of time on I-64 and the Bluegrass Parkway.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm on 6 different committees.
Oh, wow.
And each of those committees meets monthly when we're not in session. So
Okay.
a couple of them meet on the same day, but I'm driving back and forth 5, 6, 7 times a month between here and Frankfurt. So that's not as bad because I do get to come back home and I'm with Ellen at night. But it's a commitment. It really is.
Yeah. So 6 committees, is that like a lot for someone to be on?
Yeah, have you ever heard the phrase "be careful what you ask for"? Well, I went to the speaker, and I've been doing this for 2 years. This load now. I went to the speaker and I said, "Look, this is what I'm doing because I'm basically retired. Other than this, I teach a little bit at Grace Christian Academy, but I'm not full time there. So I had the time, and I went to the speaker and said, "Hey, look, this is what I'm doing now, and I don't want to be bored.
Mm-hmm.
So put me to work. I'm here to serve.
Yeah.
I said I was going to serve Daviess County. I'll serve. Put me to work." He puts me on 6 committees. So typically, I don't know of many people that have more than 4.
Okay.
But I asked for it, meant it, and I'm glad to be doing what I'm doing. And the back and forth is just part of the deal.
Yeah.
When you're in the military, you get separated from the family anyway.
Right.
So it's not like this is a new experience for us. And my wife's great. She's 100%, 120% supportive.
That's great.
And she understands. So
Yeah.
it works out well, but it's a little bit of a grind.
Yeah. So when you're in Frankfurt, when y'all are in session, 5 out of 7 days a week, are you staying there overnight or do you commute every day?
No, I stay overnight.
Okay.
I've found someone who is a retired military as well.
Mm-hmm.
They live in Frankfurt. He was the former commander of the Kentucky National Guard, and they snowbird. So their house is actually empty from about January through March.
Oh, okay.
So this works out perfectly. They get somebody to keep an eye on their house, and then I get a house to live in. So
That's great.
It's worked out pretty well.
Okay, good. So which different communities are you on?
Let's see if I can get them all right. So I'm on state government, which is just general. If you don't know what committee it's in, if it's not a medical thing or if it's not a specialized topic, it goes to state government.
It's like a catch-all.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on state government, then I'm on veterans, military affairs, and public protection.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on natural resources, so oil, coal, that sort of thing, water.
Yep.
And then I'm on. Let's see which one I'm missing here. I'm on a subcommittee, which is a budget review subcommittee for general government as well. Oh, no, I take it back. I just switched over to health and family services on budget subcommittee. So I'm still getting a little bit used to that. Mm-hmm. So that's a budget subcommittee. And then I'm on something called the Public Pension Oversight Board, which is what it sounds like. We literally have oversight responsibility for all state pension funds. And then the last thing, and I'm the chairman of this one, is elections, constitutional amendments, and intergovernmental affairs.
Okay.
I haven't really figured out what intergovernmental affairs means yet, but I'm going to eventually. So I'm focused on elections and constitutional amendments.
Okay. So, man, I had a question. I forgot what it was. Okay, yeah. What's like the if you could like choose one issue, like what's the big issue right now? What's the hot topic in Frankfurt?
The easy answer to that is the tax reduction plan we have in place.
Okay.
So our goal, and this is a pretty ambitious goal, it's going to be difficult to get there, I'll tell you that, but our goal is to have 0% personal income tax for Kentucky residents,
Really?
Kentucky workers. And we started out, we were at 5%, but it was actually graduated up to as much as 6%. We set a flat tax rate a few years ago. 2017, we started out. One of the first things we did was get to a flat tax rate. And then we developed a plan, and this is a little tedious, but I think it's worth talking about. So every year we have targets, goals, triggers that we have set for our funding in Kentucky, for our revenues. We have to make sure we have the revenues plus 1% over what we think we're going to budget, what we need, which is what we budget for.
Okay.
So we say if we budget for $10 billion, we have to have 1% over that.
Okay.
And then there's some other things. We have to have a certain amount in our trust fund, our emergency fund, and a couple other triggers. And when we hit those triggers, then we can decide if we want to reduce the rate by half of a percent each year. Every year we look at that. If we meet the triggers, we vote on it. If we vote to reduce the income tax, we bring it down 0.5%, and no more than that. It's a very graduated process. If we don't hit the triggers, we don't have a tax reduction, and that happened in 2023 when we looked at 24, 25 when we're looking out. We didn't meet our triggers so that we could have a tax reduction this year. We did last year. We didn't this year, but we've already seen the triggers for what 2026 is going to be. So we've already voted in 2026 we'll go down 0.5%, which will take us to 3.5% from the 6% we were looking at earlier.
Okay. And you're trying to get to zero.
We're trying to get to zero.
And so just to make sure I get this right, you have different goals that you're trying to meet or triggers, like coming in under budget or something like that.
We want to make sure that whatever our projected revenues are, it's at least 1% higher than our projected budget.
Oh, okay.
Because when we take 0.5% off, we want a buffer. There have been states that just went to 0% from 6% with no plan on cuts and spending, no plan on revenue growth, no nothing. And it was catastrophic for their state. And we learned from that. We looked at what worked in other states and what didn't. And we know that if we're just steady and we stay on focus and that we have the revenue growth that we're seeing across the state, if that continues, and we believe it will, because we're on a roll in Kentucky right now fiscally.
That's great.
So we just wanted to make sure that whatever we did, we didn't destroy the budget. We didn't destroy our ability to serve the people of Kentucky. But we want to get that income tax rate down as far as we possibly can, and the goal is zero.
That's great. Doesn't Tennessee have zero? They have something with taxes.
They have zero income tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, their income tax rate is 0%.
Okay.
So they've gotten used to it, but they have like their sales tax, I think, is at like 9%, and we're at 5%.
Yeah.
6%. I'm sorry, 6%. So they have offset that 0% income tax in other ways.
Yeah.
Truth is, and I'm bragging on Kentucky a little bit, if you evaluate all of the taxes people pay, food taxes, income, all of that, corporate taxes, we still have a lower tax rate. Totally. Yeah. But people focus so much on that income tax.
Yeah.
And the reason we're doing it is companies want to go someplace where their employees are having a good life.
Right.
And it's not so much a corporate tax rate, because we're not trying to get zero corporate tax. We're looking for income tax, personal. And so corporations want to come to places where their people are happy, and people are happy with a 0% income tax.
Of course.
So that's what we're working on. And it's the goal is to bring more business into Kentucky, and it's working.
Okay. And so you mentioned businesses coming to Kentucky. And so to bring that a little more closer to like specifically Owensboro, I know for like during election season, a lot of the like people running for city commissioner, they're talking about an industrial park, and that's like a section of land a little bit outside of the city, which is specifically zoned for large businesses to come in and build like I mean, industrial type buildings,
That's
factories
correct.
and stuff.
Like we're looking at, I would say locally, everybody's looking at some land that we have out by the airport. It's when it's close to the airport, that means transportation costs are
Right.
lower. We've got a river. The Ohio River is a great transportation opportunity, and we have rail. We have everything in place.
Yeah, there's a lot. We'd probably need a bigger airport though.
You hit on a good subject there because I'm on the aviation caucus, the Kentucky Aviation Caucus, and my goal, if I don't do anything else the rest of the time I'm in the office, somehow, some way, we're going to get that airport busier than it is right now. We've got one of the longest runways in the state, 8,000 feet. We can take a C5, military C5, and have it land there.
What's that?
That's the large military transport airplane.
Mm.
It's huge. You can put like 120 people.
Wow.
Tanks, it takes everything.
Wow.
So awesome. The bottom line is we have this great runway, great airport opportunity that we need to expand on, and I'm working really hard on that. Got some ideas I can't talk about now, but we're getting there.
But going back to the industrial park, the argument there is, well, we want an industrial park so these businesses come here and so that there'll be more growth in the city, there'll be more jobs. But then a lot of people, because I mean, Owensboro has very hometown feel. Yes, it's a small town, and like as soon as you drive into the city, you cross the bridge, there's on one of the buildings, there's a big mural, and it says #1 small town in America, or something like that. And so a lot of people say, well, we don't want Owensboro to grow real big. We want it to have this small hometown feel. So I was just curious, from the perspective of an elected official, what's your opinion on that?
That's that's a thorny question. That is a good question. I want us to grow. I don't want us to become. I'm not going to name any cities. I don't want us to become this mega city of any kind.
Right.
So Owensboro is it's the best place in the world to live as far as
it's a treasure for sure.
But we want to provide opportunities for our people, and we particularly want to provide opportunities for the people who are growing up here. And maybe if they go to the University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, go to some other school, or even if they stay here and go to Wesleyan or Brescia, we want them to either stay here when they graduate or come back.
Right.
And I'll add to that, even if they don't go to college, I'm a big believer in the community college system. I'm a big believer in the trades. If we don't have people working in the trades, working with their hands, taking care of infrastructure, that sort of thing,
stuff's not going to get done.
It's going to fall apart.
Right.
So, but whatever you choose for your path, I'm hoping that path leads back to Owensboro. And part of that process is we have to have opportunities. So we have to have some growth. And the way I describe it is it's like playing baseball. Mm-hmm. Everybody talks about that home run. The grand slam is what everybody talks about. And that would be, a 5,000 job industry coming into Owensboro, and all of a sudden we've got 5,000 new jobs.
Yeah.
I like base hits, doubles, triples, that sort of thing. I like it when Owensboro Grain adds on a new product line or something like that, and they add 100 jobs.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And I could go on and on as far as the different companies we have around here. But I like base hits.
Yeah.
And I like doubles. And if we get the Grand Slam, yay, we'll all celebrate.
Yeah.
But we can grow these industries and bring in new industries, maybe not the home run, but bring in new industries and still keep Owensboro's, lack of a better term, Owensboro's charm.
Right. No, that's a good word for sure. I mean, we moved here about 6 or 7 months ago, and I've grown up in Indiana, in Newburgh, which is a town. I mean, it's essentially Evansville. If you didn't live there, I mean, you couldn't tell if you were in Evansville or Newburgh. But I've lived there nearly my whole life. But we'd come to Owensboro all the time because we have family here, and my mom grew up here. And I mean, it's just such. I mean, it's only 30 minutes away, but it feels like a whole different. I mean, it's so different. It's not just the accent. It's people are so much nicer here. And I mean, even like you're walking around Evansville, you're not going to, and not just because it's a big town. I mean, even Newburgh, if you're walking around Newburgh, like you're going to try not to make eye contact with people. You're not going to say good morning to anyone. But here in Owensboro, it's like everyone's friends. And And I mean, we hardly knew our neighbors where we lived. I mean, we knew some people, but there was a lot of people in the neighborhood that we just didn't know. But here, everyone feels much more connected. I mean, I was at a burger place last night, and 4 different people I knew were there.
Yep. And it's the beautiful thing about Owensboro. Even if you don't know someone, they're still a friend.
Right.
And that's why we came back. You know, Washington, D.C. is one of the coolest places in the world to live.
It is. Yeah.
I love going down Lincoln Memorial, my favorite spot in the world, probably. But this is Owensboro. It's special.
For sure. All right. So I think we want to transition a little bit. I'm sure we'll have a lot more to talk about legislation and all that. But the title of the podcast is The Jesus Conversation. So one thing, this is my first interview, but one thing I want all my guests to do is to share their testimony, how they came to Christ.
I love doing that. Be glad to. So I did grow up here, and I'm going to take it. My testimony has a little bit of a joke in it. I hope it's a joke. So my family, we went to church when I was a kid growing up, and they got a little disillusioned. They were the youngest couple in the church, them and one other couple. So they were kind of tasked. It seemed like everything they did was, every time they went to church, someone wanted them to do something. They got a little disillusioned with that. So we stopped going for a little while. But one of my best friends in school, a guy named Robbie, hey Robbie, he said, "Hey man, you need to come to church with me." And I was like, "What? Why? Why don't I want to do that?" He goes, "Well, it's church. That's important, but more important than that, the girls there are gorgeous." I said, "What?" And he says, "Yeah, man, these girls, you need to come see our church." And I said, "Okay." So I started going. It was right. The girls were really pretty and they were really nice. But I was right at that point. I was like 14 years old. So I was kind of looking at the spiritual awakening thing was going on. I was looking at everything. I was looking at, well, you name it. I was checking it out. Astrology, I was checking everything out. And so I was curious. And just being around the people of that church. Aunt Betty was my Sunday school teacher, Betty Miller, and she just, she made a huge difference in my life. At some point, I was actually at a youth rally over at Owensboro High School at OHS in their auditorium, and it literally hit me. I mean, physically, it was like a physical jolt to me. That it clicked to me that there has to be somebody in charge. And when I look, and I had come to that conclusion logically, I just looked around and say, this can't be an accident. This whole creation can't be an accident. Somebody has to be in charge.
Yeah.
And whatever the sermons were, whatever the speakers said, that was my moment. And I literally went forward up on OHS's stage and gave my life to Christ.
That's great.
And I guess I would say, when you give your life to Christ, there has to be something that changes. And for me, before that moment, I worried about everything.
Yeah.
I mean, my mother was worried about me because I worried so much. And she was just thinking I was too young to have that much on my shoulders. When I accepted Christ, I still paid attention to what was going on, but I knew it was going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because I knew there really is somebody in charge.
Right.
And that somebody loves me. And he cares about me, and it's going to be okay. Even if things don't go the way I want sometimes, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that changed my life, my outlook forever.
Yeah. That I was listening to the song on the way here. Just came up on my playlist. It's called Even If, and I think it's Micah Tyler or something like that. And he's saying like I want all these things to happen. Like, this is how I want my life to be. And then he says, but even if it doesn't work out that way, I know you're in control, so I'm going to be all right. And I think that's definitely something that I've struggled with, to remember that. And I know a lot of people do. Just remembering that, like, even if you don't get that dream job, or you don't get the grade on that test, or the girl, or whatever, and those are, or like a big thing, like if something is happening in your life and it's like a really awful thing, if you're a Christian, the worst thing that can happen to you is you die and go to heaven.
Right.
Like, God's got you, and He's got a plan for you. And Romans says, I think Romans says, "For I know the plans I have for you, not to harm you, but to prosper," and that God works everything out according to His will, which is, I mean, and Tim Keller, he said, if we knew everything God knew, we would want exactly what He gave us.
Exactly. And Romans, one of my favorite books in the Bible. I would just say to anyone who's just getting into the Bible, you want to read the Gospels, but
Sure.
Romans is not a bad place to jump into pretty early, too.
Yeah, I like all those books that, like Acts and the epistles, the epistles, that's like the letters that Paul wrote, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I love those. I'm reading, I'm nearly done with them, but that's what I've been reading through lately. I think I'm in Joel right now. Or not Joel. I don't remember. One of the smaller ones, not Joel. But what was I gonna say? You mentioned looking at creation and saying this can't just be an accident, and we talk about it a lot in government class. It's
right.
You call it natural revelation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's really when we were talking about that, we were talking about what kind of laws there are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right.
There's man's law, which is by definition flawed.
Yeah.
And then there's God's law, and there's revealed law and natural law. Under some call it unrevealed law.
Right.
And the two things there, the two sides of that same story is one, just observation, just look around.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes obvious that there's somebody in charge.
Yeah.
But then when you get into the book, get into the Bible, get into Romans and Acts and John, Paul, Mark, Luke, and then when you get later on, as you go into the Old Testament, and you see that the entire Old Testament was about Jesus.
Right.
It was setting the stage for what was going to happen.
Fascinating.
Then that's actually when it seems to all come. It did for me anyway. When it all comes together, when you see that somebody has to be in charge, and then when you get into the Bible and see, and this is who it is.
Yeah.
And this is how it happened, and the entire history of man was all built around that moment when Jesus came.
Yeah.
That's when it gets very exciting. I mean, I get goosebumps right now thinking about it.
Yeah.
So, that's what we were talking about then.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the idea of the Big Bang, even when I wasn't a Christian, like in middle school, I've always loved to argue with anyone, and I was trying to start a debate club at my school, and no one wanted to come, and which is fine. I figured it would be kind of hit or miss, and I'm doing this now instead. But I mean, I love to argue, and so when I wasn't a Christian, I would argue with Christians all the time, and I'd look for opportunities to say, like, look for inconsistency or whatever. But even back then, like, I was like, there's no way the Big Bang is real. Like, there's got to be something else, because it's just the idea that all of a sudden, like, something hit another thing and everything exploded. And I mean, in science is even like matter cannot be created and matter cannot be destroyed, except for this one thing at the very beginning. Then everything was created then, but now we're not creating stuff anymore. And that everything just got thrown together just perfectly that we could have life here. I mean, and like they've done studies, it's like, oh, well, if we were even like a mile closer to the sun, we'd all burn to death. And if we're a mile the other way, we'd all freeze to death. Like that this is the perfect spot. And I mean, and then not just looking at like astronomy, I mean, just like life here on Earth and intelligence, like it can't be an accident.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at the human eye, and I'm no scientist, no biologist or botanist, or not botanist, that's plants. And I'm not a genius in that world, but they say that the human eye could not evolve. It is as it is, and I'm just going to take the word on that. I'm not smart enough to figure that out.
Yeah.
You're right. There's just so many things that say somebody's in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it all came to me one time when I was like 15 years old. About then. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a strong believer, and when we were in class, you connect everything to the gospel. And I'm curious, when you're in Frankfurt and you're working on legislative stuff, I know a lot of that is like policy and paperwork and all that stuff. But like, when are the opportunities, and how do you like get across the message when you're up there?
Well, I will start by saying that every vote I take, and I'm imperfect, so I don't get this right every time. I try, but my faith is my foundation on what's going to guide me as to how I'm going to vote.
Yeah.
And it gets very complicated sometimes. But what I do is I combine my faith with the backbone of our country, the founding document, which is the Constitution.
Yeah.
And if you combine the faith, and you combine what God says, what Jesus says that you should be doing, with the guidelines we have with the Constitution, most of the voting decisions become pretty apparent.
Yeah.
There are times where it's difficult. Some people get very wound up about some of the gambling votes that we've taken lately. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's on my list.
Vote. Okay. I'll just tell you now, some of the hardest votes I've ever taken is how do I honor the Constitution? How do I be faithful to my beliefs?
Right.
And at the same time, do I look at the business aspect of it, economics? Do I look at independent individual freedoms that are guaranteed in the Constitution? What's my responsibility as an elected official to put guardrails in place for the welfare of the state and the country?
Yeah.
It gets a little complicated sometimes, but ultimately, eventually, I end up just praying about it.
Yeah,
and I do my best, and sometimes I'm right, and sometimes I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm. So, sorry, I'm forgetting again.
Yeah, I can distract you easily.
Yeah, I know, I'm all over the place right now. But yeah, that's great. Yeah, I have a lot of questions about they just opened a new casino right outside town, like right on your way in. You see it; it's huge, and I mean that generates a lot of revenue. It's big business, and it was only recently legal, right?
Yeah, we just voted on a couple of years ago to even have that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, this is kind of an example of the complicated part of it. I voted against the casino. I voted against the concept of having additional casinos in the state.
Right.
That's the best way to put that. I didn't think expanding gambling was a good thing for the state. I lost. We voted for expanded gambling. And since then, I've had to reconcile to that. And then the rest of my votes have been, well, this is coming. How do we regulate it? How do we make sure that people aren't falling off a financial cliff getting involved with it? If we're going to have it, and we are, what's the best way to have it?
Yeah.
So that's what's influenced my votes since then. And it's gotten a little, there are times where I voted in favor of stuff that I probably 5 years ago would have never considered that I'd, one, ever have to vote on, and two, would vote for it. But you have to look at the situation today, not the situation what I thought it was going to be 5 years ago.
Yeah. And so there was already casinos in Kentucky before this?
It's the racetracks.
The racetracks.
Now, there's two branches of gambling in Kentucky. One is the nonprofit bingo, the military associations, VFWs. They've always had some kind of machines in the facilities. We had this gets really complicated. I'll try not to get too much into it, but some of the small stores would have slot machines in them. So there has been gambling of some type. The primary one, the most obvious one, is the racetracks.
Right.
So what the initial vote was to expand gambling was for each one of the racetracks we have in the state, they would allow one off-site betting facility, which is what we have, the gaming facility we have here now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's got a big horse on it.
Yes.
Yep.
So
it's racing and gaming. Yeah.
Racing and gaming. So the primary focus of it was off-site horse race gambling.
Right.
And the gaming part, that's where it got it a little more complicated.
Yeah.
They expanded it to not just be watching videos of horse races, where they were allowed to put slot machines in as well.
Yeah. So that casino is like the one for, so you're saying each like racetrack has an off-site
They have
casino?
one location they can have.
So that one's for Ellis Park?
Right.
Okay. But they're not very close to each other. I mean,
No,
relatively.
there's some specific technical guidelines how far apart they can be. They can be no farther apart, and I don't remember the exact amount of distance, but like we have one, and if I tried to name them, I would mess them up. But bottom line is, for each of the on-site racetracks we have, there's one off-site track allowed, one site off-site betting facility allowed.
Okay, that makes more sense. So going to transition off that a little bit, and I'm interviewing Jameis on Wednesday, and he talks about So me and some of the other guys from Pleasant Valley, we do a small group on Friday mornings, and he's talking about gambling all the time. So I'm going to talk to him about it for a long time, probably. But I want to talk a little bit about your time in the military as an Army officer.
Right.
How did you? So you mentioned earlier about wanting to serve, and what was that kind of? What was your thought process there?
So when I was, I guess, a sophomore in high school, we had an ROTC, junior ROTC program at Apollo, and I was looking, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. What was going to be my track in life, and I knew I wanted to serve. It was just something in me that said I want to do something that I'm going to make a difference. And I chose the military. I said, I think I can go that way. And truthfully, at the time, I thought to myself that sometime in my adult life, when I'm young, we're going to go to war somewhere.
Yeah.
The odds were just in favor of that I was going to go to war somewhere. And I said, well, if I'm going to go to war, I think I can be a good leader. I at least want to be a leader in the battle, not just a follower.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided I was going to go into the military. I thought I was going to go in the Air Force, and about the same time I decided I wanted to go to the military, I started wearing glasses.
Yeah.
Which makes it a little difficult to excel in the Air Force if you're wearing glasses. Can't be a pilot. So
yeah,
I redirected towards the Army, applied for an Army ROTC scholarship, and got a full ride to college that way.
Okay.
And the commitment was if I took the full ride, I had a 6-year commitment to the military.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got me into the Army. And so I spent 11 years in. I ended up choosing to get out after 11 years. That's when I ended up in D.C. But it was a pretty cool career. My first assignment was Northern Italy, jumping out of airplanes.
Yeah.
I've literally jumped in almost every country of NATO in Europe, Southern Europe, Greece, Italy, Turkey, Spain, Belgium, Germany. I've been to England a few times, done some training there. So that was a pretty cool assignment.
Yeah.
And from there, I went back to training in Oklahoma and ended up staying in Oklahoma at Fort Sill for 5 years. That's where I was a battery commander. From there, I ended up going to Korea. Mm. Spent 13 months in Korea in another artillery unit there.
In Korea, that was one country then, right?
No, it was North and South Korea.
South.
Yeah, and still is. Yeah. But South Korea.
Okay.
Republic of South Korea is what it was called then. And that was a good experience. Fortunately, it was only 13 months because I was separated from Ellen. Ellen is here in Kentucky while I was, on another continent. That wasn't particularly fun.
Yeah.
But it's what you decide to do if you're going to stay in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I ended up being assigned to a unit in Washington, D.C. And when you're an officer, you have your primary specialty, your primary focus, which for me was field artillery. My secondary, I liked journalism, I like that sort of thing. So my secondary was public affairs, and I actually ended up commanding a unit called the U.S. Army Combat Camera Unit.
Okay.
And we literally, back then there weren't cell phones, and you didn't have everybody videoing everything. We literally would go out and document what Army units did. So, and I got back on airborne status there for a while too. But enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. Again, traveling the world, went to some different places I hadn't planned on going, deploying teams. But once we got out, I just stayed there, and I said, if I'm getting out of the Army, what's something I can do? Well, as you may be able to tell by now, I can talk.
Yeah.
So I said, I think I can make a living selling stuff.
Okay.
And that's what I did. I just got into commercial sales and enjoyed it. And in the, again, coolest place in the world to live, Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. But as I've already said, Owensboro's home.
Yeah.
It was time to come back. I knew when the time was, it was time to come back, and that's what we did.
So I want to ask you about what you did with NATO, but real quick, for anyone who doesn't know, And this morning I was talking to my mom about it, and she was asking me about NATO and about BRICS, which we can talk about in a little bit. But and I realized I didn't know as much as I probably should. So just for anyone who doesn't know, you like a quick 30-second what
Sure.
NATO is.
So NATO is the North American Treaty Organization, and it started. It was an offshoot of World War II. There was something called the Organization of. I'll try to get this right. OAS. I think it was Organization of American States. I may have that wrong. So history buffs, sorry. But that was the precursor to NATO, and basically what happened was Russia wasn't just Russia back then. It was the
Right.
Soviet Union. And Soviet Union, Soviet bloc was, Ukraine was part of it. You know what's going on there now. There was like 13 different countries that were the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics.
Right.
And to offset that power, that military might of all those different countries together, we came up with NATO.
Mm-hmm.
And originally there was, I think, 11 NATO countries.
Yeah.
When I was in NATO, when we were part of the NATO force, there were 13 countries at the time. Now I don't know what the number is. It's over 20.
Okay.
There's a lot more countries that have come in. So the purpose of NATO was simply to provide that combined force that could offset the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And the crux of NATO is if you attack one of us, you attack all of us.
Right.
So if Russia or Soviet Union back then had invaded Germany, they weren't invading Germany, they were invading NATO.
Yeah.
And all of the countries would have automatically, by trigger, would have gone to the defense of Germany.
Yeah. So, and then what did you do for NATO?
So I was in an airborne unit that had, we were the immediate reaction force for NATO. And each country was responsible for having a battalion that would be that first response unit. So if something had happened in Germany, we would have been deployed along with all the other NATO countries.
Yeah.
We would have been the international force that would have been the first line of defense while the rest of the troops were firing up the tanks and getting everything together and getting ready to go. So we were that literally the first line of defense.
So it would have been you and then a first response team from Germany and a first response team from Italy. So you'd be fighting with other people from other countries.
So we spent the majority of our time when I was there, and it's still that way today, but most of our time we spent training with the other units, other countries.
Oh, okay.
Because different languages, you got to come up with a way to handle that. Some different operational aspects. And we had to make sure that what we thought we would be doing in a situation would match what the other countries were doing. So we would get out there and just be 13 separate units getting slaughtered. We would be a combined force.
Wow. But the USSR at the time, they only had one. Like was it like each country of the USSR had to contribute to the Soviet army, or was that just Russia's army?
It was all one. I have to think about this for a second.
Yeah, it was kind of a French question.
Yeah, it was basically one force.
Yeah.
They didn't have sovereign countries as much.
Right.
They did, but they were really
under
the control of Russia.
Yeah.
Whereas we were independent countries who had made a treaty, but we still had maintained our sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
The Soviet countries really had no sovereignty.
Yeah. And NATO is still around today.
Correct.
And it's different, for sure. When Trump was elected a second time, I could talk about Trump for 5 hours. So I'm going to be careful.
Most people can.
Yeah. I in my notes here, I have the word Trump, and that's almost the only thing I wrote down because I could have, but I'm going to try not to get into it too much. But Trump said, he said, you guys at NATO, you haven't been paying your fair share defense-wise. We've been paying by far the majority of defense spending, and you guys haven't been he was saying that some countries in NATO haven't been paying anything. And so he's saying, well, you guys need to start paying or you're not going to get any protection from us. And which I remember at the time kind of caused some tension within NATO. And then, of course, there's some countries that would like to become part of NATO, like Ukraine, and that some thought that they should be in NATO and some thought they shouldn't. And so that they're nowadays, when I hear about NATO on the news, it always seems like they're fighting with each other. And I know that the like right after World War II, the Allies formed. I don't remember what it was called, but it basically fell apart because the United States wasn't part of it. Like it was their idea, but then Congress didn't have them in it. But I mean, do you
Right.
think NATO is like a long-term thing?
It is. And I'll talk a little bit about the stresses that are going on there right now. And Trump did exactly that. And what he's saying is true. There were countries that were giving like 1/10 of 1% of their GDP, gross domestic product, their national treasure.
Yeah.
They were giving almost nothing. Some of them were doing 0.5%. The commitment was 2%.
Mm.
We have given more than 2% for decades since we've been in.
Yeah.
We have the largest economy in the world.
Okay.
And we were giving the largest percentage towards the defense of another continent.
Yeah.
And the argument for that has always been what's good for them as far as defense goes is ultimately good for us.
Yeah.
But at some point, and it doesn't matter if you like Trump or don't like Trump, I agree with what he's saying about NATO. At some point, if everybody has to step up.
Yeah.
It's a treaty organization. Everybody needs to do their fair share. And that's what his argument's been. And of course, the countries that have been, for lack of a better way to put it, haven't been doing their fair part.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have to, and they're not excited about it. So the conversation was Trump's deserting NATO, leaving them hanging. No, he's just showing some accountability.
Right.
In my opinion, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And they stepped up. By and large, all the other countries said, "All right, we've enjoyed our time. We'll start putting more in," and they did.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like a lot of politics, and you even when we had government class, you make the distinction between a politician and an elected official.
Correct.
And I feel like a lot of politics. Well, first, can you explain that? Like the difference between the two?
I guess the simplest way to put it is a politician making decisions that is best for him or her,
mm-hmm.
and an elected official is making decisions that's best for the people he or she serves.
Right. So it's like an elected official and a politician. Like on paper, it's the same position, mm-hmm. but then a politician is someone like a stereotypical politician who's like finagling their way to get what they want. Right.
It's priorities. It's your foundation, your core beliefs, and. The truth is, I live in a political world.
Mm-hmm.
I have to deal with the politics of the situation.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. But the decision, I think the turning point there is, am I going to allow the politics to dictate my decision-making, or am I going to focus on my foundation, my beliefs, what's best for my people, and let that be the focus of my decision-making? I can't ignore the political aspect of it, but I can't let it control my thought process.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the difference.
Yeah. And the easiest way I think about it, like if I'm listening in the news and they play a sound clip of someone who I don't know or haven't heard about before, and I'm like, well, I wonder if this person is a politician or an elected official, I'll listen to their answers. Like when I'm asking you questions, like you give me a very straightforward answer or you'll explain something and then you'll answer it. But like politicians, like there's this like roundabout way of speaking they have where they won't really they technically answered the question, but not really. Like they did, like they knew what you're asking and they did not answer it. And I don't really know where I'm going with this, but that's just what I think of.
And I kind of have a clue. I call it when I'm doing like something like this. My goal is to not step on landmines. I call it stepping on landmines.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look at a scenario I'm going into. I'm going to go, where are the landmines? And I'm going to try not to step on them. But there are times where you just got to give a hard answer, or you got to do something hard.
Yeah.
And it may not even be. It might be distasteful. It might not be something you particularly want to do. But sometimes you just have to make the hard decisions.
Yeah. So the way I was going with this is a lot of politics is like red tape, and it just feels like you never are actually reaching the goal, and everything takes a long time and all that. And I mean, since I've paid attention, that's just the way I've always seen it. And then Trump got elected, and now he's like setting records for all these executive orders, and there's so much stuff being done, and he's getting through a lot of stuff that he said he would, and he's moving fast. And he's not a politician, I don't think. He's a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how to make things efficient. And but I wonder what you think about this. That maybe there's a danger there. Maybe
there is a danger there.
It's not taking your time.
Now, let me be absolutely clear. I perhaps love just pretty much everything he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Our country, we need a reset.
Yeah, for sure.
But we don't need to blow everything up.
Right.
And the danger is every president who does something that nobody else has done before has set a precedent.
Yeah.
President setting a precedent.
Yeah.
It's a little tricky there, but they set a new way of doing things. If they do something different, like Trump is definitely doing things differently than
for sure
maybe anybody in history of our country. But once he's done, that will be the new standard.
Really.
And his party won't always be in power. My party, we're the same party.
Right.
And whatever he's done, the next group is going to go, well, if he did it, we can do it.
Yeah.
And so there is some danger there, but I do believe in our Constitution, and I believe that if he crosses a line, there is a process.
Mm-hmm.
Congress is going to say something about it, or at some point the Supreme Court's going to say something about it, and the checks and balances kick in. And I'm a big believer in the checks and balances of our government and our Constitution.
Yeah.
And you've heard me say this before in class. People complain that nothing ever happens in government. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
And the way I'll put it is this. It's slow, it's messy, it's not pretty, and it's supposed to be that way. And if government were too efficient, let me tell you about efficient governments. China has a very, very efficient government.
Yeah.
If they don't like what they do, they kill you.
Yeah.
Russia has a very, very efficient government.
Mm-hmm.
If you disagree with them, you just disappear.
Yeah.
Efficiency, for the sake of efficiency, is not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
We want our government to work, but we want it to be slow and deliberative.
Mm-hmm.
We want it to be a little messy. Otherwise, it becomes a dictatorship.
Right. But did you listen to his interview on Joe Rogan?
I didn't listen. There's no way I could have sat for that long to listen to an interview. I mean, that was the.
It was like 3.5 hours.
Yeah, there's no way I could listen to it. So I would just have to pick up the highlights that were reported in the news.
It was fantastic, and I mean, I had been a fan of Trump for a long time, and my dad was, but like listening to that interview, like it was so clear just how human he was, but my point is, one of the things he said is like the first time I was in office, like I'd never done anything in politics before. I'm a business guy, and I didn't really know what I was doing as well as I should have. And there was a lot of people around me who pretended to be my friend and weren't, and that really slowed me down. He's like, well, guess what? I've had 4 years to figure it out now. Or he had 8 years figured out now, and 4 of them I wasn't doing anything except figuring out what I'm going to do next time I get elected. And I feel like he's saying, like, I know what I'm doing this time. And he's picking people who are very clearly on his side.
I would put it this way. I think the first time through ignorance, and ignorance isn't a bad thing. Stupidity is a bad thing. Ignorance is a lack of knowledge. Stupidity is a lack of being willing to use the knowledge you have.
Yeah, like wisdom and knowledge.
Right, exactly. He was surrounded it's just the system that's in place by politicians.
Uh-huh.
This time he's surrounded by servant leaders.
Yeah.
And I wholeheartedly believe that. There are plenty of people that disagree with that vehemently.
Mm-hmm.
More power to you that you're right. I think that he's got people in place who really want to do what's right for the country, as opposed to whatever percentage of people had in his first term that wanted to do what was right for themselves.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in you have to be a great servant before you can be a great leader.
Yep. That's exactly true, and that's something that was driven into my head and my heart in the military. Was that first assignment? I had some fantastic leaders. I mean, the guys that came out of that unit over and over again. They're general officers, 4-star generals, 3-star generals. Wow. I mean, they just and I ended up getting out as a captain. So I don't know what that says about me, but I saw leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw guys who were servant leaders.
Yeah.
I saw the guys that would be in the front of the airplane jumping out first, not putting everybody out and then landing the plane and going out and finding them.
Right.
I've found leaders, and that's influenced my life so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Jesus, during his time here on earth, he led a lot. That's a big part of what he did. But also, he served, and he washed the feet, and he took care of his friends, and he healed people. Like, he was a big servant. And then, of course, the ultimate act of servitude, he died for us. We didn't deserve it. They're completely undeserving of this sacrifice that he made. And I mean, it's just the ultimate act of servitude there. And now he's our king. He's up in heaven, ruling at the right hand of God, the greatest leader. Yes. And the greatest act of servitude corresponding with the greatest leader. And I mean, I really think that that's a principle that applies in every aspect of life.
It does. And there's been a lot of different people who said it a lot of different ways, but one of the best ways I've seen it, or I've heard it, is that the more people you serve, the greater your success will be.
Yeah.
And that the perfect example of that, literally the perfect example, is Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
He served the entire humanity.
Yeah. And closer to home, my grandpa has like done a bunch of stuff for a bunch of people. He's a great man. And as I started this podcast, this whole past week I've been scheduling interviews, and I realized I have so many connections because of him. Like, he knows so many people who are just so willing to do something like this because I'm his grandson, because I'm related to him. Like, he's really become a leader in the community. Like, I feel like everyone knows him.
Yep, they do.
Yeah, he's great. Can you believe we've been talking for an hour?
No. Oh my gosh. Sorry, folks, if we've been rambling.
No, this is great. I fully I want this podcast to be like, I want this to be like good. Like Joe Rogan, he does like 3 hours a day. Yeah, that's crazy.
And he has conversations, and
yeah, it's a real conversation.
Makes a difference.
Yeah, and I was getting ready this morning, and Brad Rhodes called me, and we've been playing phone tag for the past week, and he called me, and I was in the bathroom getting ready. I was like, if I don't pick up now, I won't talk to him for another week. So I picked up, and I was like, hey, how you doing? And I told him about the podcast, and I told him I wanted to have him on. I wanted to have Chris on, and then I asked him about some lawyery stuff, because I want to get the business. So I have this podcast is called The Jesus Conversation, and then I have Veach Ministries, which owns The Jesus Conversation, and hopefully in the future we'll own some other podcasts, and including the one my mom wants to do. But I need to get it registered, and so I was asking about that. Anyway, but he was telling me, like, when you're interviewing someone, you can't just have a list of questions and then ask the questions. Like, don't focus on getting all your questions off, because, like, if we're talking about something and you mention something and I'm like, okay, that's cool, but let's talk about this other thing, just to get through my list of questions. Like, I need to ask the questions based mainly off of what your answer was to the past question. So, like, I need to think about, what is the audience going to ask right now? Like, what are they wondering about right now? And I think Joe Rogan does that great. He's an interviewer. That's what he does, but I don't think of him as an interviewer. Like, when I think of interviewers, I don't think of Joe Rogan. Like, because it doesn't feel like a traditional interview. It just feels like a conversation. It feels like he just sat down with a buddy of his, and they just talked for 3 hours, and I got to listen in.
Yep.
That's what I want this to be like.
Good.
Except maybe not 3 hours.
Yep.
I mean, if we talk for that long,
3 hours, I get pretty boring after. Well, we may already be at that point. I don't know, but I would just say I'm excited about what you're doing.
Thank you.
And it's something we talked about, and I finished up our class, your class. One of the last things I did, and if you want to talk about this, we can.
Yeah, let's do it.
I played an audio of something that kind of changed my life, like 45 years ago, maybe. And it was a recording by a guy named Earl Nightingale. And if anyone is listening to this, you need to Google Earl Nightingale. And he did a talk that was called The Strangest Secret. Mm-hmm. And the whole concept of it was, there is a secret to success. and he called it The Strangest Secret.
Yeah.
And I'm going to paraphrase about a 45-minute audio of his, but the strangest secret is that you become whatever you focus on. And if you want to do something, if you want to succeed at something, you need to focus on it with all your effort. And it kind of changed my life, because at that point in my life, I was just kind of scattered. I wasn't really focused on anything. And that helped me say, I got to settle down and pick out what I'm going to focus on. And I ended up focusing on sales, and that was pretty good. I ended up, we ate okay. We didn't starve. And when I came back here, that the focus will shift. You don't have to stay on the exact same thing your entire life. You can, but you don't have to. But whatever you're doing at that point in your life, you need to focus on it.
Yeah.
For me now, my focus is being the best state representative, the best elected official I can for the state of Kentucky.
Yeah.
And that's how I spend my time now. You don't have to give up everything in life to succeed, but if you're not focused, you will just wander around. And in today's society, with all the distractions we have, it's even harder, but more important, to find that thing you want to focus on. So I'm excited that you've gotten into this and jumped into it, and you seem to be, it seems to be focus for you.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, I when I get into something, I will hyperfixate on it. And it's all I've been thinking about for the past week. And a few days ago, I was just like, I hit a wall. Like, there was nothing else I could have done. I was scheduled all the way up into summer, and I'm going to Florida over the summer, so I can't schedule past that because I'm not sure which day I'm going. And I had hit a wall on the legal aspect of it, like the business side, and I had already finished my notes for interviewing you. Like, there was nothing else to do.
Right.
And most people would be like, "Oh, I'm done. I can rest." And I was like almost having like I wasn't sure what to do, and I just sat on my computer and scrolled through my calendar and just up and down looking and making sure I didn't miss anything. And I just was really struck by, I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm so obsessed over this. There's nothing to do with it right now. And I just need to trust God and say, God, I trust you that you've got this. I trust that if I'm missing something, you're going to let me know about it. And if not, then it's probably a good thing that you didn't let me know about it. And so I just kind of was like, okay, I'm just going to let this go, and I'm going to interview Mr. Johnson on Saturday and just take it from there. And so I've been a little more relaxed the past few days.
Well, that's good. And I'll throw in just a thought on that. There's Stephen R. Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah, I've heard
I think
of
I got the title exactly right. But 7 Habits. Everybody calls it the 7 Habits.
Mm-hmm.
One of those habits is sharpening the blade. You can't saw, if you're sawing logs,
Mm-hmm.
you can't saw nonstop. Eventually the blade becomes so dull that all you're doing is you're just
dragging it across the wood.
Yeah, you're not doing anything. So part of focus is knowing when you got to step back, sharpen the blade.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And I don't know what other questions you might have, but we're wrapping it up here. I will say two things, just to put maybe a bow on our conversation. Was, if you will identify your faith and your beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
for me that's Jesus Christ. If you can place your faith in God and let His beliefs, let His teachings guide you, and at the same time find that thing that you're passionate about and focus on that, you have set yourself on a path of success. Wherever that success goes, whatever that definition is, it doesn't have to be riches.
Right.
Success is about being really good at what you want to do, and doing it. So if you can combine your faith, and for me, it's my faith in Jesus Christ, with a focus on what you love doing,
Mm-hmm.
you will succeed.
Yeah.
It doesn't, you don't know how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I would just throw that out as and maybe a thought we could wrap up with. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I have a few other things.
Okay.
And
we're good. That just popped in my head.
Yeah, no, that was great. And so you said his name's Earl Nightingale. Yeah. In that talk he gave, The Strangest Secret, this is a quote I got from it. And he said, I don't know if this is an exact quote. I wrote this down while I was listening to it. And I looked back at my notes the other day when I was preparing for this. And it says, your mind is a machine. that must be controlled and directed towards a noble cause. And I mean, like we're talking about like creation earlier, like God has created. I mean, the mind is fascinating, and I've watched a ton of like YouTube videos and sciencey movies and stuff about the mind, and it's so complex. It's, I mean, it's just absolute proof of a creator, in my opinion. But it's also like it says here, it's a machine. Like it can accomplish fantastic things, and if you really set your mind on something, I mean, within reason, of course, you're going to be able to accomplish that goal that you've got. And and uh, and if that's something that you want to do, like sales, like say, okay, I want to be the best in sales, and you focus on that, and you're thinking about it, and you set your mind on that, that's something that you're going to be able to accomplish. But at the same time, if you're setting your mind on like negative things, or you're thinking about like, oh man, I'm such a terrible person, how come I can't do this right, or you're worrying about stuff all the time, that's going to become your reality. And like it says, like the mind, it says that the mind is a machine, but he also said it has to be controlled and directed towards a noble cause. Like it's a machine, you can't just let it run loose. Like if you have a tank, a powerful tank, you can't just I don't know how to drive a tank, press the pedal, I don't know.
Push the levers forward.
You can't just push the levers forward without looking. You're gonna hit one of your friends, or you're gonna shoot something that you're not supposed to shoot. Like it needs to be controlled.
It needs to be controlled, and I'll just jump on something on that. Your mind will do whatever you tell it to do. If you tell it to focus on success, you tell it to focus on productivity, that's what it's going to focus on. It's going to follow whatever you tell it to do. If you tell it that you want to just think about negative stuff and you want to think about failure, it's going to do everything it possibly can to take you down that path.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the key to this. How do you tell your mind what you want it to do?
Right.
And this is biblical. The bottom line is, it's your words. It's your tongue.
Yeah.
The way I've had it described before is you can have the greatest ship in the world out on the ocean. If it doesn't have a rudder, you don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Your tongue is your rudder for your brain. And, you know, you hear about self-talk and things like that, and some people kind of poo-poo that and say it's silly. Your brain is going to listen to what you say.
Absolutely.
So if you can discipline yourself to focus on, and it's not just focusing on the positive like there's no problems in the world, but you've got to focus your brain on what you want it to do. Yeah. You do that with your words. Your words lead to your actions.
Yeah.
And your words lead to what your brain is going to focus on. So discipline yourself. Control what you're saying, and you will control what you do.
Yeah. And it says here, when you think about positive thoughts, you're going to get positive results. But conversely, negative thoughts are negative results.
Yeah, and there's a conversation about you can just talk anything into reality. I don't necessarily agree with that,
right?
But it certainly is going to be better if you focus on positive stuff. You've got a much better chance of creating that reality than if you focus on the negative and you just create that reality instead. I probably said that badly, but the bottom line is just because you say something doesn't mean it's going to happen. But if you're going to try to make something happen, you should at least talk about it in the right way.
Right. Like if you want to become the best, if you want to like join the basketball team or whatever, this is not my strong suit. But
I noticed that.
Yeah. I tried to play basketball with some of the guys during a break at school a couple days ago, and it's like, guy, I'm gonna go over here and play pickleball. Like, it is not for me. And but if you're trying to make the basketball team, you're gonna tell yourself, okay, I can be good at basketball. I need to practice. I can be good, and I can make the team. You might not make the team, but you're gonna get out there and try. If you're just like, I'm not a good basketball player, there's no way I can make the team, you're never gonna try. You're sticking on the theme of sports. You're gonna miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Like if you have that negative self-talk, you're not even going to begin to make that first step to the goal.
You'll never know what you could have done,
right?
If you talk yourself out of doing it.
Yeah, and man, that was a great transition. I said goals, and that's what I want to talk about next. I'm going to do that on purpose. In that talk, he says the key to success is having goals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I wrote down. But if you want to talk a little about that.
Sure. Again, it goes back to if you don't know where you're trying to get to, you'll never get there.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to set out. Well, if you think back to I think it was the very first day of class in your class.
Yeah.
Everybody thought we were going to start talking about government. I said, get out a piece of paper, and I want you overnight to write down your 20-year goals, your 10-year goals, 5-year, and 1-year goals.
Yeah.
And the results are always interesting when I do that.
Yeah.
Because most of the people at your age, at that age you were at that point, hadn't really thought about goals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because that's a freshman class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's 14-year-olds. Really, their goal was to get through the day.
Right.
But if you're going to succeed in life, again, you've got to know where you're going. And the first thing to do is to identify long range what you want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not going to be locked in. This is going to change as you go through life. And at one point, my goal was to be a general in the military. Ended up being a state representative. So the goals will change.
Right.
But if you don't know where you're going and you don't have anything to focus on, you can't focus.
Right.
You have to set those goals, and then you have to look at them. And ultimately, it breaks down to the point when you get up in the morning, you read your goals.
Yeah.
You should have them in front of you every morning. You should wake up. First thing you look at should be, this is my goals. This is where I'm going.
Yeah.
And then you ask yourself, what am I going to do today that's going to take me closer to that goal?
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, you're gonna go to the end of the day and go, well, I'm still here. I exist, but you hadn't done anything to get to your goals.
Yeah. And I remember on that last day of class, you had us write down on an index card, so what is my goal today? And I put that on my mirror, and it's still there. I look at it every day, and that's what I do. And I don't even think I look at it anymore. It's just a pattern for me now. And I have on my phone, I've got my lists, what I need to do today, and I have them all dated, which days they need to be done. And I'll say in the morning when I'm getting ready, I'll look and I'll say, what absolutely needs to be done today? And that's what my goal is for today. And going back to the tank analogy, if you got a big tank, and this is a powerful machine, and it's your mind, and so you've got your mind, which is a very powerful machine. But if you don't have a goal, if it's not going anywhere, like it needs to be going somewhere. If your mind is not being used, if the tank isn't going anywhere, it's just going to sit there, and if it goes unused, it's gonna break down, and it's not gonna be able to go anywhere once you actually want it to go somewhere.
Yeah, I think of it as mental muscles.
Yeah.
Just like you can not do any exercises and your muscles atrophy and you get weak.
I know about that.
That's physical. The same thing is true with spiritual muscles. The same thing is true with emotional muscles, and the same thing is true with your muscles that you use to be productive.
Right.
If you don't work them out, they just get worthless.
Yeah. And I think in that same vein of self-talk is reminding yourself, like, I'm a child of God. When you mess up, I mess up every day, and I'm like, oh man, I suck. What am I doing? And it's you have to remember, like, I'm a child of God. Like, I'm a born again Christian. I've got the Holy Spirit. Like, God chose me. I'm a child of God. He made me in His image, and just remembering that every day, and I mean, it just makes a huge difference.
It does, and again, it goes back to like when I first became saved. Was it's okay?
Yeah,
I'm not going to be perfect. I can't be perfect. There's only one perfect man in the history of humanity, but I can go try my best, and God will honor that. And that's you wake up in the morning, you think like that, you're gonna have a good day.
Yeah,
the day there may be bad things in your day, but you're still gonna have a good day.
Yeah, I mean, literally what you just said pretty much happened to me yesterday. The night before, I mean, I've been struggling with this, and I just really messed up the night before, and then that morning after, I was angry, and I was snapping at everyone, and I was just thinking about how awful I am, and I'm on the way to school, and I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just, if I'm stuck in this sin or in this shame, then I'm just going to go right back to the sin, because that's what makes me feel good right now. And it was like, I need to remember, like, I don't feel joyful right now at all, but I need to choose joy in this moment. And it just changed my whole day. I had a great day yesterday.
Good.
Yeah.
And that perfect example.
Yeah. So I think last thing I want to talk about in regards to the strangest secret, and then I've got one more thing I definitely want to talk about.
Okay.
So it says, how high will we aim? And I went to a leadership seminar, summer camp type thing last summer. It's called HOBY, HOBY. It's an acronym, and it's like Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership or something like that. And it's HOBY Leadership, and there's one for each state, and then they have a world, and then there's one for each country. For the United States, there's 50 of them, and then the whole, like, they meet worldwide in Chicago every year. It's a big thing, and each school in a state gets to send one representative. And I'm the only one who wanted to go at my old school last year. So, I mean, it's school of 2,000 kids, and I'm the only one who wanted to go. So I got to go to the Indiana HOBY. And it is a secular organization. And so there's a few things I don't agree with for sure. But for the most part, it's all stuff that applies to a Christian's life. It's really great stuff. And one of the things they were talking about is about goals. And they were saying, like, don't be afraid to set huge goals.
Right.
And they're like, so write down on a piece of paper, write 3 goals that just seem absolutely ludicrous to you and just are, like, just seem completely, like, it doesn't matter if you think you're not good at this, or if you think it's never going to happen, or if it seems impossible. Just write down your dream job, write down your dream life, whatever is your goal. Write that down. It's like, okay, well, I want to be the president of the United States. So I write that down, and then we all did that, and then the guy who's giving the talk, he's like, all right, what's the first step to getting there? Can you do that? And I was like, well, I guess so, because I was like, well, my first step, I guess I should try student government next year. And I was like, I mean, I could run for student government. Like, the first step isn't becoming class president. The first step is just try student government. Just apply yourself to that and run. I was like, well, I can run. There's nothing stopping me from running. And I did. And I was the only one who ran. There's a theme here, I guess. I was the only one who ran. And so I got class president. And, like, there's always that first step that you can take. And like, don't be afraid to set big goals. Because if you don't set big goals, you're not going to get those goals. You're never going to get them if you don't set the goals.
Well, one thing that popped in my mind thinking about that, because you're talking about that you're the only one that wanted to run.
Mm-hmm.
There is not a crowd of leaders.
No.
Leadership is never crowded.
Yeah.
There's, I don't know. I don't exactly know how I want to say this, but if you want to be a leader in a situation, there will be a space for you. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. But also but like, God gives gifts, and there's the gift of leadership that some people have, but then there's also the gift of serving and the gift of following.
Yep.
And a lot of people, like, I hear all the time, like, you're either a leader or a follower. But I feel like, I mean, in some ways that's true, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to be either one of those. Like, and whichever one God calls you to be, you need to be the best at that. Like, if God calls you to be a follower or a servant in a situation, you need to be the best follower or servant that you can be. And God calls you to be a leader, you need to be the best leader that you can be. So whatever God calls you to do. I mean, if we just had all leaders and no followers, nothing would get done.
That's right. And the situations dictate which one you should be.
Right.
In any given situation. Sometimes, I'll follow the leadership in Frankfurt. There are times when I'm just not sure what I need to do.
Yeah.
It's not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
But I've got to vote on it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go find someone who can lead me, guide me, give me information to help me make the best decision I can. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, I'm a follower.
Yeah.
But if it's a topic that I don't know what I'm talking about, and I think there's people that'll come to me and say, hey, what do you think about this? And at that point, I'm the leader in the situation. But that can shift from 1 minute to the next.
For sure. And I feel like follower kind of has a negative connotation. But I mean, just being part of the team, not like blindly following the leader. But I mean, if you, like, agree with the leader's mission and all that, and there's some situations where even if you don't agree, like, you're called to have respect for the leader, and but just to be the best follower you can be and be a team player and help out where you're supposed to be helping out.
It's almost a loop, because we talked about servant leadership. Sometimes servant leadership is servant followership.
Right. And you can be a leader, or you can be like a follower, but still be a leader of
You
the
can be a
other
role
followers, like a role
model
model. Yeah,
as a
exactly.
follower. You
Yeah.
can be that guy that people go, well, if that's what he's going to do, and he thinks that's the way, that's what we need to do, and follow that person.
Yeah.
I'm going to go along with it too and see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one last thing I have written down. There's a couple things I have written down, and one of them that I definitely want to talk about is totally different than what we've been talking about, but it's this. It's dressing nice.
Mm-hmm.
You dress nice, obviously. I mean, you're a state representative, and everyone in politics dress nice except John Fetterman. I could talk about John Fetterman for a while too.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's like I mean, you think of a politician, immediately you think suit and tie. And like a lot of them like clean shaven, and I mean, it just feels like leaders and people who are in quote unquote like prestigious jobs, like lawyers and doctors, and like you're gonna dress nice and wear a tie or a collared shirt. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure in like my generation to not do that.
Mm-hmm.
Say, well, oh, these are how these people do it, and like, what's the point? Like, it's just a fold in your shirt, right? Like, just what the like people around me, like how this, like, especially when I went to like a public school, like there's no one dressed nice. None of the students dressed nice. I didn't dress nice, and but people look at you when you dress nice, or but I'm sorry, people look at you differently when you dress nice. Like it's, I don't know, I don't really know what my opinion is here, but I'm curious what yours is, because I mean, it's definitely, I mean, it's a fold in the shirt or a piece of cloth that runs down your shirt. It's a tie or a collar, but like, what makes that difference and why is it important?
I think the first part is, yeah, people will look at you differently if you dress nicely,
Mm-hmm.
but you look at yourself differently. And
Absolutely.
I think that's probably more important than what other people think about you.
Yeah.
It's what you think about yourself. And if this is going to sound a little corny, but if you don't have enough self-respect that you want to present yourself properly in public,
yeah,
then you're doing a disservice to yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I love wearing hoodie sweatshirts and jeans.
Yeah.
You know, I've got my old Sparkle Bright hoodie sweatshirt that I'll wear if I can get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would never consider wearing a hoodie sweatshirt and jeans on the house floor, or even I would not even do that just to go into the office when I know I'm not going to be on the house floor, just going and doing work. I'm going to dress in a way that shows the respect I have for the job, and the respect I have for the other people who I will interact with. And I remember very early on, like my first term, I went out and I'd made it a point. I was wearing a sweater and a collared shirt and khakis. You know, and it was just to go out in public. And someone goes, "Aren't you DJ Johnson? Aren't you our new state representative?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "I just want you to know how much I appreciate the fact that you dress the part.
Yeah,
I want you to know I appreciate that you're trying to represent us." And I said, "Well, I appreciate that. I'd love to be in jeans and a hoodie sweatshirt, but I take it serious."
Yeah.
And I think it sets a mental pattern in your head.
Definitely.
That if you're going out looking sharper than the guy next to you or the gal next to you, it gives you a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I like dressing nice, makes me feel better for sure. And if I'm feeling bad for whatever, like if I'm sick, I love dressing nice when I'm sick. Like when I'm sick, I'll dress as nice as I can because it just makes me feel better. And especially like a leader of as high of a caliber as you are, like state representative, and like how are you gonna feel if you're walking around in jeans and a hoodie and someone recognizes you and you're like, oh man, I should. How come I'm not wearing a collar right now?
Yeah, that doesn't mean I'm going to put a coat and tie on every time.
Well, yeah,
but you don't have to be dressed in a suit to dress appropriately.
For sure, yeah. And okay, so it's definitely important to dress nice if you're a leader, for sure. But what about people who aren't in a position of leadership or just like young men at school?
It's still the same thing. It's do you respect yourself or not?
Mm-hmm.
Do you respect the people around you have to look at you, or don't you?
Right.
Do you? It goes back to that whole thing about goals.
Yeah.
If you're trying to get someplace, and you know that if you dress better, or if you dress nicely, that you're probably going to get a little more attention. You're going to get a little more respect in that manner. Well, if you're trying to get to your goals, why wouldn't you just do the simple things like
Dress
put
the
a nicer
part.
shirt on and put some decent pants on that don't have holes in them everywhere? Wear some dress shoes instead of tennis shoes that are falling apart.
Right.
It goes back to the goals. If you've got a goal and you know part of that goal is that you've got to look the part, then look the part.
Yeah, for sure. All right, one last thing I have.
Okay.
Is about this issue of life. And this is a big issue right now. And I remember during the election, everyone was taking polls. And a lot of the polls were like, what's your number one issue right now? And I was thinking about that. And I was like, it's got to be abortion. Like, that's my number one issue if someone had given me that poll. Which they didn't, because I was 17 and my 18th birthday was a week after the election.
I remember that.
Man, that was frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
But
and then we don't have any elections this year, so
I know.
you don't even get to vote this year.
Yeah. If I'm around next year, I'll vote for you.
I appreciate that.
And so, but I listened to the briefing a lot with Al Mohler. And this actually, there's been a lot of inspirations to start this show. And that's one of the big ones, is the briefing. And he talks a lot about the culture of death. And this scares the crap out of me. And so I think we talked about this a little bit in class when we went over current events. And because, I mean, the big issue that everyone talks about is abortion. And whether you're for it or against it, it's a big topic. But Albert Mohler, a lot of times he points out, like, it's not just abortion. It's not just the beginning of life. You have to think about all life and all stages of life. And he talks a lot about, like, elderly people in homes. And so he says, like, the culture of death, like, there's a lot of, like, assisted suicide. It's become a big thing in Canada and Sweden and some other countries. I think so. I'm really sorry if I'm getting that wrong. I know Canada for sure, and I think it is Sweden.
Yep.
And that they have assisted suicide there, and that if you're an elderly person and you have, like, Alzheimer's or, like, some kind of disease that makes your quality of life not very good, then a doctor can kill you. And it's just like there's no respect for life. And I just wanted your opinion on that. Of course, abortion and then assisted suicide and everything in between, just from the standpoint as a legislator, because Dr. Mueller, he says, like, this isn't a thing in America right now. At the end of life, abortion is a thing. And he's saying, but the culture of death doesn't stop. Like, if we let this happen across the northern border, like, if we're letting these things happen across the world, eventually it's going to come here. Like, progressivism is called progressivism for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's a slippery slope.
Well, I'll start off with the concept of life.
Mm-hmm.
I believe life begins at conception.
Yeah.
And the way that I've reached this conclusion is that instant, no matter what you try to do before that instant of conception, life doesn't happen.
Right.
You can do anything you want, but until conception, there's no life.
Right.
On the other side of that instant, if you simply allow it to be nurtured and grow.
Right. If you don't do anything, if you don't interfere,
it's going to develop.
Right.
It's going to grow into a more mature being.
Uh-huh.
So, there's a lot of talk about when is the tissue viable, and that's just part of the development process.
At what point can you stand back and just let it develop?
Right. If the embryo from that instant, if it's simply nurtured and protected, it will grow. Now, part of that process is growing in the womb. Is in the womb.
Yeah.
Part of the process after that is out of the womb. But the bottom line is, regardless of the environment, whether it's in or out of the womb, if it is nurtured and protected, it will become a mature life.
Right.
The only moment that I can see that there's a change in that is conception.
Right.
So I will always believe life at conception, and I will fight for protecting that life. Period. And the circumstances that creates that life can be horrible. It's still at that moment of life.
Yeah.
And deserves to be protected and nurtured.
I mean, like, they'll talk about, like, well, what about in cases of rape? Rape is an awful thing.
Horrible.
The Bible says that, I mean, the Bible wholeheartedly condemns rape nearly, like, on the level of murder. Like, doesn't it say in, like, Deuteronomy and all that, it's like people who kill and rape should be put to death. And it's a horrible thing. And in some cases, it causes the woman to become pregnant. Now, again, it's a horrible thing, but that's not the kid's fault.
Right.
And the kid is a byproduct of that horrible action, but it's still a human life and still created in the image of God. And God works all things out for the good. And so, I mean, it's not like you can't just... And they'll talk about, like, women's choice. Well, what about the baby's choice? The baby is a human life, too.
If you accept that life began at that instant, then it should have a say.
Right.
It should be just as protected. And I make a differentiate on this. I'm not looking for the baby to be more protected, the embryo, the infant, to be more protected than the mother.
Right.
But I think it's got to have the same protections. And if there's a battle as to which life, like if the life of the mother's at risk, the courts can decide that.
Yeah.
But that baby should be at least considered what's going to happen to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the current policy on abortion in Kentucky? I'm not up to date on this. I really
illegal.
should be.
Abortion is illegal in Kentucky.
Like, period?
The exception is the life of the mother.
Okay.
There's a lot of talk about rape and incest exceptions.
Right.
Again, it goes back for me. I will say it this way. If some guy rapes a woman, I can't say in a recording what I want to happen to that guy.
Right.
I have something in mind that I would like for the punishment.
Yeah.
It's when I mentioned don't step on landmines. If I tell you what I think needs to happen to that guy, I'll lay my foot off.
Yeah.
So I won't say what I think needs to happen to him, but I've got a very specific punishment for that guy.
Okay. I think I understand.
Yeah, that being the case, there's a life that has been created.
Yeah.
And we can't ignore that. And what we have to do as a society, and what we try to do in Frankfurt, is to set up the laws and rules for this. We have to provide everything we possibly can for that mother.
Right. Absolutely.
Bottom line is, regardless of the circumstances that made it happen, she is now a mother.
Yeah.
We have to do everything we can to protect her, but that baby has rights too.
Mm-hmm. I mean, rape is an awful thing, but you're not going to fix that by doing something else that's awful.
Right.
And you're talking about helping the mother out, and there's been a lot of talk federally about, like Kamala Harris talked about this a lot, and Trump's talked about it a little bit, and I don't think, I mean, this might be the one thing that I heard Kamala Harris said that I was like, oh, that kind of sounds like a good idea, is like helping out new parents, like making baby stuff way more cheap, like affordable, and I think she was talking more about like giving them the stuff and giving them paid leave, and Trump's talking more about making it more affordable, but just having a program in place to give new parents that, like, a platform to jump off of.
Well, I think that the way I would look at it is meeting them at their needs.
Yeah.
There are some women who can afford everything they need for the baby.
Yeah.
We don't need to be trying to help them.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Then emotionally, and giving them the support they need, and spiritually, emotionally, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are some mothers-to-be that, and I mean like the term mothers-to-be, they're effectively a mother at conception.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're already nourishing the child.
Yes, they are. We need to do whatever they need. We need to be able to help them out with that.
Yeah.
And we've got, in Owensboro, just locally, we've got dozens of agencies who are focused on helping that mother. CareNet Owensboro is great.
I'm going to interview, okay, I probably shouldn't say this officially, but I'm trying to get an interview with Letitia Duckworth.
Good.
Yeah.
So we've got to do everything we possibly can to help that mother.
Mm-hmm.
And if that means that she gets free materials diapers,
Yeah.
formula, whatever she needs, and if she's literally can't do it herself, we got to help her.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's spiritual. We got to meet them at their needs.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with all that. And so going back to the culture of death, this idea that if someone has a low quality of life, whether they're at the end of life or not, that it's okay for a physician to aid them in suicide, whether it's like a machine, which is just awful to even think about, or a pill or an injection or whatever. And a lot that Al Muller talk about, he's saying is like, this is going to come to the United States. Like, this is not an issue that we're isolated from, or it won't be like that for long, because the way this works, just like the culture of like LGBTQ and abortion, like these things start off at the fringe and they very quickly progress to the middle and to like everyday Americans. Like 50 years ago, the idea of LGBTQ is just, I mean, it was so different, the idea of it. And now you could go anywhere in the United States and you'll find people who are like, oh yeah, this is good. Like just middle America, small town, and it's just infiltrated everything. And what he's saying is this bears the same marks of all of that, and that this could come to the United States. So I'm curious, what do you think about that? And what what's the word? What actions can you preventative actions can you take as a legislator?
Gotcha. Well, I'll take it from two perspectives. One is legislator, and one is just a person.
Right.
As a person, I would never support, never want assisted suicide. You know, people are going to do what they want to do.
Yep.
But as a legislator, I will never, and I almost never use the word never, I will not support assisted suicide legislatively, ever. I'm not going to tell a person what they should do with their life. That's their life.
Yeah.
I would hope that they would want to live it as long as possible, even if sometimes it's not great.
Yeah.
I've got some personal experience with individuals who have struggled with that concept a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell a person what they can and can't do with their own life, but I will never sanction it through the government.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing that Al Muller talks about is the teaching power of government. Like when the government says this is legal, it's not just saying this is legal. That says we think this is right.
Correct. And that's a heady power.
Yeah.
And I try to remember that I'm not just passing a law, I'm impacting in Kentucky 4.6 million lives.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely a different way of thinking about it. So there's one other thing I wanted to say about this, and I forgot.
No.
Yes. It was, I mean, I really want to remember because I remember. Oh, yeah. About suicide. I was listening to Joe Rogan's interview with John Fetterman, and John Fetterman has had mental health issues in the past, and he's very open about them, and he says that I don't think it was him, but I think it was someone he knows, because no, it wasn't him. He became suicidal and very depressed, but he pulled out of that. And since then, it's a whole story. And I advise, if you're listening to this, to go listen to Joe Rogan's interview with John Fetterman. And I disagree with a lot of what John Fetterman says, but him talking about this stuff is really interesting to listen to. And he was talking, so now he's a big advocate for an anti-suicide guy, and he was talking about, like, there's this guy I know who jumped off a bridge, and he survived, and he was talking to me, and he was saying, John, as soon as I jumped off, before I was even halfway down, I was thinking, what am I doing? I don't want to die. And he's like, and everyone else who survived suicide attempts has told me that. They said, like, people who are actually really serious about it and really tried to and failed say, as soon as I started, I realized I did not want to do this anymore. And he said, and I truly believe that everyone would have the same thought if they tried to commit suicide. And he's like, and people don't realize how awful it is. And when you're really faced with that reality of my life is about to end, and then of course and he doesn't talk about this, but there's a whole nother layer of what's going to happen once I die? Like, if you're not a Christian, where's your hope? And I know there's people believe in other religions and they have hope in that, but for people who, I mean, if you don't have hope when you're faced with death, I mean, it's horrifying. That's a scary thing.
Can't imagine it. I don't relate to that.
Yeah.
So I think you made I think a very good point. We don't relate. I don't relate to that. I don't know how to think about that, but we can learn from the people that do.
Right.
And John Fetterman's probably a great example of that. If the people who have survived suicide are saying that,
yeah,
we need to listen. And I would hate to think that I would pass a law that would allow someone to help someone kill themselves. And if they had not been doing that, if I had not passed that law and they had not been allowed to help them commit suicide, that person would have come out on the other side of the situation.
Yeah, that's scary.
And had an incredible life.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing something like that.
And if you believe that people who attempt to commit suicide, once they start, they realize that they don't want to really die, but then for a lot of them, it's too late at that point. And if you believe that, like he does, that everyone would feel the same way, then you would never, ever, ever make it easier for suicide to happen. Because if you put people in that position where you can just die like that painlessly and without having to like wait hardly at all from between the time where you decide to the time where you actually do it to actually pass away, if you're not giving, like, if you're making that easier, then you're basically killing people.
Yeah, I think you're as much an assistant in that process as a doctor who comes up with a concoction that you're going to inject or
right.
the pill you're going to take.
And a lot of doctors are refusing to do it, and they're losing their jobs in Sweden. I mean, just the weight of that. I mean, think about that every day.
Sure.
It's awful. And for those who don't know, John Fetterman is a Pennsylvania senator, I think, and
correct,
who wears shorts and a hoodie to the inauguration of Donald Trump, and which he would have done that to Harris's inauguration too, probably. I mean, that's just who he is. He wears whatever he feels like.
Unless he goes on the Senate floor, because they made him dress up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They passed a rule.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy for sure.
He's been he is interesting. It's kind of been fun to watch him because guys on my side of the aisle, he's on the other side of the aisle. We can't. And honestly, I did not think he could possibly recover from his challenges
right.
he had, because he was just incoherent.
Yeah, he had a stroke. He had a stroke and had to relearn how to talk.
But he did, and he said some pretty interesting things. I got a little more respect for him than I would have thought I would have at this point.
Yeah, I respect him a lot more than I do a lot of other people in his party.
Yeah,
he had a stroke and he couldn't talk, and also he's on the podcast, on Rogan's podcast, he was saying like, I can hear you, but I don't understand what you're saying. Like the words, like I can't decipher words in my mind into meaning unless I read them. And so Joe Rogan would talk and his words would show up on a screen. And then Fetterman would read the screen. So there's a little bit of delay, and then he talks kind of haltingly, but he's as sharp as ever. And that happened like a week before the election. And he won, and everyone's like, well, we're going to have to pick someone else. And he's like, no, I got it. I can do this.
Yep, pretty impressive.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's all I have. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'm just excited about what you're doing here.
Me too.
I love the passion. I love the focus.
Thank you.
It's everything we've been talking about. Ultimately is identify what you want to do, make it your passion, stay focused on it, and it'll happen.
Yeah, and so I'm going to have, I talked to Gary Boswell a couple days ago. He said he'd like to come on. I want to have Brian Crawl on. He used to have the position you're in now.
He had my seat.
Is there anyone else you think I should talk to?
Oh, let me think about that. If you could get Brett Guthrie in the political world, I'm thinking in the political world. Maybe Mark Marsh, the CEO at Owensboro Health.
Say that name again.
Mark Marsh.
Mark Marsh.
He's a pretty interesting guy.
Okay, and who's Brett Guthrie?
He's our congressman.
Okay.
So he's my seat at the federal level.
Okay. And okay, so you and Okay, yeah, and I was gonna ask this too. So, um, I'm blanking. Gary Boswell is
He's the state
the
senator.
state senator for our region.
Right.
What's the difference between a senator and a representative?
It's the two different chambers that you're
Right.
in. It's the form of government. I mean, it's just the same as
Yeah.
the U.S. Constitution. We have senators, we have houses,
Mhm.
House of Representatives, congressmen, and they have some specific duties that they only that chamber does. But they also are two arms of the same body, basically.
Okay, so Brett Guthrie is the
He's our congressman.
Kentucky congressman, or yeah, federal Kentucky congressman. How do you like officially? What title? Like, how do you differentiate? Because you're always called like the state representative,
Right.
And he would be the Kentucky representative.
He is a representative, but his title is congressman.
Okay.
As opposed to representative.
Yep. Yeah, I have a whole list of people that I need to ask, and then I have a wish list of very famous people that I think it would be cool to have on. And
I would think about some people your age, or maybe a little older, like Gilbert Mitchell. You know,
I don't know him. No.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
I'll give you some thoughts on some of the younger people that you might want to talk to.
Yeah, I'm talking to a guy named Nate Johnson tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't think you guys are related though, because I asked him once. He said he doesn't know.
Probably not.
And he graduated from Classical Conversations. So I'm going to talk to him. I'm actually doing that tomorrow after church, and then I'm also talking to I always forget her name, Krista Velez, I think, and she is for our region, she heads up Classical Conversations. So I'm going to talk to her at some point. So yeah, I got a lot of people to talk to.
Good
and
deal.
Hopefully the podcast does
We'll
well.
get the technical aspect of it too, and the business aspect of it.
Yeah,
Make sure you get that.
Yeah, because it's like two different things. It's like all the business and technology, and then there's actually the conversation. It's very different, but thankfully, I think I'm good at both of them. I actually, before we started talking, we should have done a test recording, and we were about 30 minutes in. I was like, oh no. So hopefully it sounds good. If not, I'll make it sound good. It'll just be some editing, because I think my mic's a little louder than yours. Like, I'm looking at it right now, and my lines are taller. So I'll figure it out.
Tell you what, if it's horrible, we'll just do this again.
Okay.
All right. I'll make that promise for you.
Sounds good.
All right, man. Proud of you. Go get them.
Hey, can I pray for you real quick?
Please.
All right. Dear God, pray for Representative Johnson. In your word, it tells us to pray for our leaders, and so I pray that you'll give him wisdom and when he's in Frankfurt, and I pray that he will make wise decisions and that he'll stand his ground for your word every time. And I pray for our state and for our country that it will turn to you and follow your word, and I pray that we'll be a nation that loves you. And I pray for President Trump that you will help him, give him wisdom, and if he does truly know you, I pray you'll draw him closer to you. And if not, I pray that you'll make yourself known to him. And Lord, I pray that this podcast helps people. I pray that they will be exposed to your word, and that this just helps people out, and that they can get a lot out of it. And God's name I pray, amen.
Amen.
All right. Good to talk to you.
Yes, sir.